Every horror game has a theme that defines it. Amnesia has psychological terror, Five Nights at Freddy's has mascot horror, and Subnautica has trepidation, the fear of the unknown. Subnautica is a 2018 survival sandbox game created by Unknown Worlds that places you within the underwater alien ecosystem of planet 4546b. The game begins in the same vein as most others in its genre, with a cataclysmic event triggering a crash landing into an isolated, unknown environment. Now initially, the surface of the alien world that you're now stranded upon may appear somewhat tranquil, with its bright, vibrant colours, calm oceans, and timid marine life presenting itself as a sort of paradise in comparison to the turbulent event you just endured. However, venturing a little beyond the parameters of your life pod will reveal a very different truth about your new home. Despite the, all things considered, pleasant introduction you had to this aquatic world, the further you decide to venture out, the more drastic the scenery around you becomes. Quite rapidly, the shallow pools of water you started within devolve into deep and eerie oceans that are completely devoid of any of the bright lights you've probably grown accustomed towards, and are teeming with life forms that are less than friendly. And it's here, deep below the waves, that the nature of Subnautica switches from a calm and relaxing sandbox experience to a tense and paranoia-inducing horror game. But instead of continuously overwhelming you with tense music or cheap jump scares, which has unfortunately become a staple in most horror-related media, the game applies its scares in the same vein of some of horror's greatest, by keeping the threat constantly lingering in the background, occasionally presenting you with a distant roar or a jarring alert from your PDA that something large is in your vicinity, just as a quick reminder of a distant creature's lurking presence. But besides from that, you're almost always kept in the dark about what dangers lie ahead and below. And that's Subnautica's greatest strength, its ability to grow suspense while doing practically nothing, always leaving you paranoid about what horrifying monstrosity could be hiding within the darkness. And this sense of a constant looming danger is only exemplified by the remains of other escape pods that are scattered throughout the different biomes on the ocean floor, each one of them left abandoned in a state of disrepair, with the only evidence of the people who inhabited them just hours ago ever even being there, being a few audio logs they left behind, in which they detail the horrors they've experienced and hint towards the cause of their eventual fate, never quite telling you what really led to their disappearance, but making it abundantly clear that you're the last one left, and you'll most likely be joining them shortly. And any hopes you may have for your possible escape is taken when the ship, specifically assigned to rescue you from this deadly planet, is shot out of the sky upon entering the atmosphere by an automated alien turret, with you soon after discovering that the planet you're stranded upon has been quarantined from the rest of the galaxy due to a deadly virus outbreak that occurred there centuries ago, meaning nobody can come in and nobody can come out, cementing that you're completely isolated from anything beyond the confines of this hostile world, leaving you with only one place left to go, back into the ocean. And it's here, deep below the waves, that all of your growing tension will finally culminate when you inevitably come face to face with the creatures that have been lurking within the depths, the Leviathans. The Leviathans fucking suck. There are 8 different classes of Leviathan you'll encounter in Subnautica, though only 4 of them pose any real danger to you, with the most prevalent of those 4 being the Reaper and Ghosts. The Reaper is by far the smallest out of the aggressive Leviathans in Subnautica, with it only being 55 meters or 180 feet in length. However, what it lacks in its overall size, it makes up for in its sheer aggression and large population, with there being 25 of them scattered throughout the world that call the oceans of planet 4546b their home. Then there's the Ghosts. The Ghost Leviathans come in 2 forms, the adults, which are a staggering 107 meters or 351 foot in length, and the juveniles, which are 37% smaller than the regular ghosts, coming in at 67 meters or 219 feet. The adult ghosts reside primarily around the crater's edge and act as a sort of world barrier for the game, attacking any player who decides to venture out too far, though they can also spawn elsewhere, like inside of the Grand Reef or the Northern Kelp Zone, whereas the juveniles are exclusively found within the Lost River biome, where they guard the entrance to the lava lake. So what's the issue with them? Well, they're simply not that big of a threat. Sure, during your first encounter with one of these behemoths, you're most likely going to die. But you'll soon discover that similarly to sharks in real life, the trick to defeating Subnautica's most fearsome apex predators is slight rotations. See, the game's monsters act more like raging bulls than actual apex predators. Just slightly move out of their way as they fly towards you, and you'll most likely be okay. And even if one of these giant monstrosities is able to reach you, okay, they do basically no damage to anything outside of the protagonist. The only time they bear any real consequence is if you decide to let them hit you, and even then, it will still take them multiple attempts as well as 2 clean hits to actually kill you, which unfortunately transforms an event that should leave you petrified into nothing more than a pantomime. And that's the case for basically all the hostile entities in the game, but aside from one. The Sea Dragon is the 4th and final hostile Leviathan you'll encounter in Subnautica, and by God, for all intents and purposes, they are terrifying. Despite only being 5 meters or 16 feet larger than the Ghost Leviathans, the Sea Dragon is by far the most imposing creature in the game, both in its appearance and behaviour. See, what makes the Sea Dragon so frightening in comparison to the other Leviathans is the fact that they're not just limited to one type of attack. No, the Sea Dragon can attack you with a plethora of moves from basically all angles. If you swim too close to its side, it can swat you away with its webbed hands. If you make the mistake of swimming in front of one of them, they can quite literally just swallow you whole, and if you try to escape their grasp, they can pull you back towards them by displacing the water around you. Even if you manage to evade their close range attacks and create a bit of a distance between you and it won't really matter much, as they can just pummel you with an endless barrage of molten fireballs. And to make the matter worse, unlike every other Leviathan that attacks you in free and open space, with the Sea Dragon, you're confined into a tight and dense hellscape, further increasing your odds of death and meaning the only real chance you have of surviving against this beast is hiding and hoping it doesn't find you. Though just like the other Leviathans, there is one glaring issue that surrounds the Sea Dragon, that being that you will almost never encounter them. See, the Sea Dragon is completely relegated to portions of the lava lake and zone, an area that you will go to once to discover an alien prison that resides there, and to later on to retrieve the submarine you used to get down there in the first place, limiting what is by far the most horrifying creature in the game down to just a handful of encounters. There's one major problem that presents itself when a monster doesn't live up to the atmosphere it resides within, that being, everything simply ceases to be scary. Without a threat to constantly keep you on your toes, there's nothing really left to be afraid of. It doesn't help that everything that could induce fear has a counter that's readily available to the player. Scared of the dark? Use one of the several light sources the game provides. Worried about the possibility of drowning? Just carry a spare oxygen tank. Paranoid about the monsters that are quickly surrounding you? Shoot them with a stasis rifle that freezes them in place. And if you don't want to do that, just use a mech suit and punch them in the face. And sure, the game hints towards something much larger and far more deadly lurking within the depths upon the discovery of the Goliath Leviathan's remains. But you don't even get the opportunity to experience the paranoia that this creature could create before you're snapped out of it by the PDA's announcement that the entire Goliath species has been extinct for over 1 million years, once again removing a large source of tension that could weigh upon the protagonist. That's one of Subnautica's biggest issues, its ability to create great scenarios of tension, but its sheer inability to hold on to them, let alone evolve them. And unfortunately, the fear of the unknown is quickly lost when you're with the realization that there's nothing left to discover. No more monsters, no more horrors, just a dark and vast ocean.